We're going to talk about LFA, One Championship, Bellator, UFC. It's the beginning of the PFL season, and there will be no talk of MMA fighters in boxing. This is Cage Mind's MMA show. Start things off with one on TNT2. I know one on TNT1 did not go off smoothly, but hopefully you stuck around. I mean, top quality entrances, and I promise you, amazing martial arts. The main event, the one lightweight title on the line. Remember, with one weight classes, everything's up one. So this was a 170-pound title fight. Christian Lee against Timothy Nashjukin. And Lee, you could tell from the get-go, his game plan was to get the takedown, looking to set up that shot. And instead, while looking to set up that takedown, it was Lee landing a big left hand right on the chin of Nashjukin. Lee initially going for the takedown, but instead kind of just pushing Nashjukin and then swarming, finishing with punches against the cage. The ref had seen enough. Hawaii, you still have a world champion. Feature fight that we also got on TNT was women's Muay Thai action. And for my money, there is two incredible American strikers that use more than just the hands and compete in the Muay Thai and kickboxing. There's Tiffany Van Soos, the Glory champion, and Janet Todd, who we got to see on full display. Todd with incredible combinations, and I mean a picture-perfect elbow where she pulled her opponent in from the arms and then brought the elbow inside of her opponent's guard. Masterful. A slick uppercut, a hard push kick, and then ending the fight with a devastating left front kick to the body. Janet Todd in the win column. So this week we'll have more on one on TNT3. Couple familiar faces to the world scene of combat sports and a UFC veteran to talk about on that card this week. Still continuing with the highlights, going to Friday's action and Bellator 257 main event, light heavyweight Grand Prix quarterfinal, the light heavyweight title on the line in this one, as Vadim Nemkov rematching and defending his title against Phil Davis, the former champion. And Phil Davis is plagued by the issue of just not enough volume. He needs to do more. When the guy gets the fight to the ground, he is a powerful wrestler, heavy ground and pound, slick submissions. But in the striking realm, there's just a lack of activity, and that's something that Nemkov would just exploit. A beautiful jab, some great follow-up overhands, and outstriking Davis officially 162-64. The numbers said the tail of the fight, Vadim Nemkov again retains the title by decision. It was a big third round for the champion, who won the first 3 rounds handily. Move on to that other light heavyweight Grand Prix, where Corey Anderson welcomed to Bellator ACB champion Devleton Yagshimuradov. So we'll call him Yag for simple, just to keep going with these highlights. And Yag started off the fight very well. The first round landed a spinning wheel kick, looked like the heel of his foot got around the Anderson guard and did wobble the legs of Anderson, landing to the side of the head. But as the round wore on, it was Anderson able to finish that first round, getting the fight to the ground. In the second round, got the fight down quicker. Got the fight down to a position where it looked like he was about to finish it as we're closing out the second round. So he was in check, if you're thinking about checkers. And then into the third round, it's where Anderson immediately was able to attack the takedown, gets Yag down, flattens him out from the back, and pounds to the finish. So now, as we move on, we'll see Corey Anderson in the semifinals against current Bellator heavyweight champion Ryan Bader. The two have shared the training room before, and I know that one's going to be explosive. Maybe not as explosive as the fight that opened up the main card for Bellator 257, Paul Daley versus Sabah Homasi, and as expected, these two just went to war. Homasi coming out early, dropping Daley with a big right hand. Daley flailing around the cage, circling, looking for survival. Even got dropped a second time in the round. But Daley was able to recompose, get Homasi against the cage, and hit him with a knee that turned the complexion of that first round completely around. Into the second round, Daley drops Homasi with a right hand. A left hook drops Homasi a second time, and he's able to finish it on the ground. Paul Daley had speculated retirement before. Now he'd like to create his own 175-pound division. So if you're willing to fight at 175, Paul Daley's willing to do it. No more cutting all the way down to 170 for him. A couple things stood out on the prelims, including Steve Mowry, the big heavyweight, remaining unbeaten. Sean Asher trying to get inside to take the fight to the ground and eats a perfectly timed Mowry knee. Mowry sprawling out, making Asher face plant. A couple follow-up punches on the ground for the finish. Love to hear about young heavyweights, definitely in a Bellator where they could use a youth infusion in that division. Also standing out was young Australian J.J. Wilson taking on Pedro Carvalho. It was a close first round. Then to the second round, Wilson comes out, lands a spinning back fist where it's mostly forearm that lands, but definitely enough to stun Carvalho. A front kick to the face sees Wilson swarm with punches. Carvalho tried to get in for a takedown, trying to get the fight to the ground, but you see Wilson step over, put Carvalho on his back. Wilson just sitting down into mount and punches his way to the finish. Great stuff there on the prelims. Now we'll look at LFA 104. That was on UFC Fight Pass. Also Friday night, main event, Aaron Mckenzie versus Brandon Phillips. It was the battle for Sooner State supremacy. It was a tit-for-tat first round, exchanging strikes. Felt like Mckenzie just needed to get hit a little bit to wake up, where the second and third rounds, he picked up the pressure, picked up the volume, cut Phillips open over the right eye, and even landed a pair of takedowns in the third round to submit the victory. In the co-main event, Yuma Harauchi versus Devin Freelow. Freelow into the first round came out firing heavy leather, punching his way in for the takedown. Good first round for him. Second round, Harauchi has Freelow on the fence. A point is deducted very quickly for a fence grab. Harauchi comes forward, gets clipped and dropped by Freelow in the third round. Freelow follows to the ground, and after these two great first rounds, all that was for naught as Harauchi pulls off the comeback, grabbing the armbar to finish the fight there in the third round. Also got to mention earlier on the card, if you don't think wrestling can finish fights, sometimes it really does. Rolando Dunlap with a big double lad, drips Obinwa Ikebun on his back, and from the way that he does the double leg, technically as you're supposed to, cutting in on it, and then clearing the legs to the side, as they slam to the ground, Ikebun's head bounces off the mat and meets the shoulder of Dunlap, causing the knockout. That's the highlight finish of LFA 104 in my book. One more event to talk about from the weekend, and of course, that was the UFC on ESPN. UFC Fight Night, Whittaker versus Gastelum. Oh, so pivotal to the title picture at 185 pounds. Get going with some highlights. It's Whittaker stunning Gastelum early with the right high kick. The right high kick followed up by that right hand, or vice versa. It's a money combination for Whittaker, and it was pay dirt and paid off several times. And this fight, beautiful distance control from the Australian. You saw him slipping out of the way, sliding backwards, and then getting right back in the space to be able to clip and counter Gastelum without taking damage himself. The jab was on point, the left hook, the overhand right, the right hand coming off the top or then straight down the middle, and the right kick going to the body and up high to the head. Plus, not to mention, Whittaker takes down the wrestler 4 times, and overall we're looking at 100-64 on the strike stats. The former champion has now won 3 in a row, all against top 10 competition, and there's no reason why the Reaper, why Bobby Knuckles should not get a rematch against Israel Adesanya. It just makes sense at this point. A lot of split decisions, a lot of close fights on this UFC card. Couple surprises though. Nobody had the biggest betting underdog on the card, Jacob Makoon, coming through, getting the single legs, and 3 rounds of domination against Abdul Razak Al-Hassan. Al-Hassan was 3-0 with 3 first-round knockouts in the UFC before facing a legal situation that kept him away from the cage for a couple of years. He's winless since coming back, and I really hope that Al-Hassan can find that formula to get back in the win column. If you guys had heard me on the radio, talked about a couple prospects to really keep an eye out for. One of them was Tracy Cortez, and she really is developing nicely, getting the fight to the ground against Justine Kish in the first round, being able to solidify the back position with the body triangle, winning that round, doing more than a serviceable job of competing with her striking in the second round, competing and standing with Kish, who's a kickboxer, and then a mixture of for the strikes that were landed and the damage done on her takedown early, saw the split decision go to Tracy Cortez, now 9-1, and still just moving her way up the rankings there in the flyweight division. Gotta talk about the weirdest ending on the card. Alexander Romanov, Juan Espino, the heavyweight matchup. That was the prelim that I had circled that I was most intrigued by. The 2 heavyweights, one unbeaten, one an Ultimate Fighter winner. Espino gets Espino gets taken down early, but he's able to reverse the position. It's a close first round. The second round, much more definitive as Romanov gets the takedown, is landing some King Kong, as his nickname is, kind of ground and pound. Heading into the third round, Espino gets a takedown. Romanov is able to fight his way back up, but a low blow, a knee low from Espino ends the fight. Romanov is not able to get back up. They go to the judges' scorecards, and I thought it was going to go Espino's way because he got the takedown to start off the third round. The judges see it the other favor for Romanov, which is probably the right decision. It wasn't his fault that he got kneed so viciously he couldn't continue. So a technical split decision in that one. Talk about the 2 finishes on the card. The 2 great finishes from the early prelims. Joe Mershart, the dude is a submission magician, and he's able to get the guillotine on Bartosz Fabinski. Fabinski determined, just totally determined to get the fight to the ground, and he ends up paying for it, getting clipped, still determined to get it down, and then getting submitted. The card started off with the bantamweights, and you saw Tony Gravely, a beautiful left hook. It hurt Burchak in the first. It knocks him down in the second. A couple follow-up punches, and Tony Gravely gets the victory. From the highlights to the headlines, in UFC news, Phil Haas versus Kyle Dawkins has been added to the UFC's event on May 8th. Claudio Silva versus Court McGee, that one's a welterweight contest, has been added to the UFC event on May 22nd. That card has also seen a slight change. Nicolas Mota is out, and Yancy Medeiros is jumping in to face Damir Hazaj. Now, Tom Breeze is going to be facing Antonio Arroyo. That's a middleweight bout. And Santiago Ponzinibbio is going to be taking on unbeaten prospect Miguel Baeza. Those fights have both been added to the card on June 5th. In lightweight action, Drew Dober versus Brad Riddell has been added to UFC 263 on June 12th. Aaron Phillips is going to be facing Cameron Else. That one is a bantamweight bout, and that one is happening at the UFC event on July 17th. Tony Kelly versus Trevin Jones. That one also at 135 pounds has been added to the UFC's July 24th event. Amanda Nunes, probably the biggest news of the week, is going to be defending her women's bantamweight title against Juliana Pena at UFC 265 on August 7th. That means that Pena's campaign efforts paid off. Jan Blachowicz is going to defend the UFC light heavyweight title against Glover Teixeira at UFC 266. That one slated for September 4th. Bellator has announced Bellator 260 for June 11th, where Douglas Lima is going to be taking on Yaroslav Amosov, the unbeaten fighter, 25-0, 6-0 in Bellator. That card has also gained unbeaten former LFA featherweight champion Justin Gonzalez against Taiwan Claxton, and notorious Nick Newell will be returning to face Bobby King. Bellator 258 has lost James Gallagher. The promotion is currently awaiting to announce who the new opponent will be for Patchy Mix, who will remain on the card. And the card has also gained a top welterweight matchup between contenders. Michael Venom Page will be taking on Derek Anderson. If you missed the PFL news, Clarissa Shields, the multiple division boxing champion and the two-time Olympian, will be making her MMA debut June 10th on the ESPN2 main card portion of that day's event against Brittany Elkin, a 9-fight vet of MMA who has a lot of grappling under her belt. Also in women's MMA news, Invicta FC has a new home and a new ownership as they've been purchased by Anthem Sports and Entertainment. That is the Mark Cuban, Steve Harvey conglomerate. Their first event on Access TV. Their new home will be in Invicta FC 44, May 21st. The women's atomweight title will be on the line. Alicia Zapatella defends her belt against Jessica Delboni. From the news to the previews of this weekend's action. One on TNT3. This main event features a familiar name to most of us. The Hands of Stone, John Lineker, 33-9, 2-0 since moving over to one championship. He's going to be taking on Troy Worthen. Worthen, 4 finishes, and he's 3-1 in one championship for the Florida Kid. That's your 145-pound main event. Now, I haven't implored you guys to really focus on the prelims for one championship, but one on TNT3 prelims available on BR Live. These ones really are intriguing. First off, Murat Gatsavorov, who is 18-3 versus Ray Yuma, who is 13-3. The winner of that fight will face Eddie Alvarez at 1 on TNT4 so that we can see the Underground King in action. On top of that, in a 178-pound Muay Thai matchup, the Australian legend John Wayne Parr faces former Glory World Champion, the natural Nicky Holtzkin. The dude has a devastating left hook and a great accuracy to finding it and digging it into the liver. Such a devastating, damaging shot. Now, that moves us over from Wednesday, that is on Wednesday, the one on TNT3, to Friday, where it's the start of the PFL, and kicking it off with the lightweights and the featherweights. Cage Minds is going to have all the results for you. 3 fights, real quick to focus on that main event. Showtime Anthony Pettis making his PFL debut against Clay Collard. And if you'll remember, Collard, for most of us, was the 2020 Boxer of the Year. Got busy on Top Rank Boxing, pulled the upsets. Now can he do it against the cage in a against the dynamic finisher like Pettis, who's coming in with a lot to prove. The co-main event, that's your two-time PFL lightweight champion Natan Schulte against Polish fighter Marcin Held, who's fought for Bellator and the UFC. The man has a nasty leg lock game, and his striking really has improved through the years. Feature fight, that's your two-time PFL featherweight champion Lance the Party Palmer taking on Bubba Jenkins, a Bellator vet who was holding the Brave title before signing with the PFL. Both guys are collegiate wrestlers. Friday night, UFC Fight Pass. You have LFA 105. The main event, a battle for the vacant strawweight title. Pits Colombia against the Ukraine. You have Pira Rodriguez against Svetlana Goitsky. Rodriguez comes in 4 of her 5 wins, finishes. Goitsky, she's won 10 of her last 11 fights, 3 first-round finishes, her last 3 victories. Co-main event, former title challenger in the LFA, Jake Childers, taking on Kana Kawahai, who is 5-1, heavy-handed Hawaiian. You also have Mark Martin, 5-1 on a 4-fight win streak, 2-0 in the LFA, taking on Hanato Valete. Valete, 7-3 overall. And in a women's feature fight earlier on in the card, you're going to be seeing unbeaten Tabitha Ricci against Shauna Ormsby. Ormsby and Mark Martin both joined me for interviews this week. Check those out at CageLions.com. Or also just keep looking here on the YouTube channel. They're both available. So that's LFA on Friday night. It all leads up to the big event on Saturday. UFC 261, Jacksonville, Florida. The ViStar Memorial Arena, a 15,000-seat arena, packed to the gills. The UFC is fully back in business, and they're kicking it off with a lovely, this card is awesome, 3 title fights in all. We got the rematch at the top, Kamaru Usman, Jorge Masvidal. Will many of us believe in Masvidal? There's a lot of people that still believe that the champion's power jab, that his ability to switch stances, and his outstanding wrestling is just too much of a gap for Masvidal to make up in this short a time. Masvidal is a knockout artist. He's a fighter's fighter. He will always give it his all. He knows that he was able to last 25 minutes on 7 days. How does the second part of this play out? I'm so excited to see. It's Masvidal, it's Usman, it's the rematch, it's the main event. The champion has shown little blemishes, little weakness in his offense, in his defense, in just devastating the title challengers. We saw Usman get hurt, get wobbled against Burns, but then regroup and really go to town and dominate and damage, beat up Gilbert Burns. So now we've seen Usman not just win one-sided and be dominant, but we've seen him battle back from adversity, and that is a huge just hump to get over for a fighter. It's something that we learn. It shows us about that extra will, and it was a great moment for Usman, his last title defense. Masvidal, he's been able to sit back, work on his wrestling, get healthy. This is an easier weight cut, and he was able to leverage the landscape of the division and his popularity into another title fight. Hopefully he can pay off. It would be something great to see a guy like Masvidal, who's been in the game for so long, talking about fighting since the Kimbo Slice days, backyards in Miami. It would be awesome to see him walk away with the title. Co-main event, as I said, 3 title fights. This one, Zhang Weili defending the women's strawweight title against Rose Namajunas. Namajunas, the former champion, 5 submissions of her 6 finishes. Zhang Weili, a 21-fight win streak. She has 10 knockouts, 7 submissions. Absolute war put on in her last fight with Yana Jędrzejczyk. The swelling, the damage, the fight of the year, the greatest women's title fight we've ever seen. That's what Zhang Weili did the last time we saw her in action. This one, there's animosity. There's a little bit of trash talk now that there's been history, the past, some strong feelings from Namajunas about the country that Zhang Weili comes from. This one has intensity to boot. Two phenomenal strikers, even though, like we said, Namajunas really made a name for herself coming up with her submission game. The third title fight. It's the women's flyweight title on the line. Jessica Andraj, who was the champion at 115, now challenging for the title here at 125, just like she did at 135 against Valentina Shevchenko. The champion has been unquestionably the best flyweight since the division's inception. We've seen, even in fights where like she was taken down by Juliana Pena, the Bullet had an armbar in her back pocket to show off just how diverse her game is with that level of grappling that nobody knew was there. Since that time, we've just seen beautiful striking, including that highlight continued runoff of the knockout head kick that Shevchenko hit Jessica Eye with, and the complete domination against Caitlin Chikagian. But it was a right hand to the body from Jessica Andraj against Chikagian that earned this opportunity. If there's anybody that can pull off an upset, it could be the hardest puncher in the division, and that's what I would categorize Jessica Andraj as. Raw power, we know that she won the title at strawweight by picking up Namajunas and slamming her on her head. If anybody can upset the Bullet, it could be Jessica Andraj, even though you know the champion is coming in this weekend as the favorite. Also on that main card, it's a rematch, a long time in the making. Former middleweight champion Chris Weidman is going to be taking on Uriah Hall. Hall, 12 wins by knockout, and he's riding a 3-fight win streak. Opening up the pay-per-view, you got the former title challenger in the light heavyweight division, Anthony Lionheart Smith, coming off of submitting Devin Clark. Smith has 18 knockouts, 13 submissions. It's a lot of experience to take on a Jimmy Crute who only has 13 fights in all. Smith has 16 losses. Crute has 13 fights under his belt, but it's 12-1 for the young Australian, 4-1 in the UFC, has 9 finishes, 5 knockouts, 4 submissions. He can get the job done in a plethora of ways. This is a big step up in competition for Crute. Smith, where is he at in his career? Is he the measuring stick? This would be a big one for the Aussie if he can get by. On those middle prelims for the ESPN portion of the card, one fight jumps out at me, and it's Patrick Sabatini making his Octagon debut, 13-3. The former Cage Fury FC champion. Last 2 wins, a TKO and an armbar, both getting it done early and in vicious fashion, taking on Tristan Conley. Conley, 14-6, 5-fight win streak, 4 of them by finishes. He's been gone with injury for a while. Good to see Conley coming back, and that is definitely the fight that I am most excited for on those middle prelims. Now, the early prelims gives us another focus on the card. With Zhang Weili on the card, we know that this is a big night for Chinese mixed martial arts. Well, it becomes even a bigger night for Chinese mixed martial arts when you look at the early prelims. Na Ling making her Octagon debut, a 4-fight win streak, all of them finishes, taking on Arani Karasani, lost to Angela Hill a couple months ago. She's 12-2, 8 wins by knockout. Not enough of that Chinese theme. Olin Arya makes his UFC debut, again, Chinese fighter, 18-6, a 6-fight win streak, 4 of them by finishes against Dana White Contender Series vet Jeffrey Molina. Molina coming in 8-2, 4 submissions, 3 TKOs overall. This is a guy that's 8-2, and once upon a time ago was 1-2, a 7-fight win streak to get to the UFC. I've had the chance to interview before Kazula Vargas, he's 11-4. He's going to be taking on Chinese fighter Rong Jue, who's making his octagon debut on a 10-fight win streak. 9 of those wins have been finishes. And Mongolia's Dana Batrel, who is trained here at the Jacksonville Academy, he's 8-2. Finishes in 3 of his last 4 fights. Is going to be taking on Kevin Navidad. Navidad 9-2. 5 of his 6 finishes come by way of knockout. So a huge theme on Chinese fighters on this card, and a huge theme on finishers. I really got to say that I feel there's a lot to love on these early prelims. And there's a lot to love this weekend with a lot of great MMA, 3 title fights. It's UFC 261. I hope you're as excited as I am. Don't forget to keep all that excitement up when you visit CageMinds.com for results on all these events that I've mentioned, and to go check out those great interviews. Also, we got the Micah Frankel's Cage Minds podcast. Believe me, you get deeper in here on a lot more of the crazy thoughts I'm having of what's going on in the sport. Want to keep up with us on social media? You can do so on Facebook, Cage Minds Combat Sports News. On Twitter, it's at Cage Minds MMA. On Instagram, CageMinds_CSN for Combat Sports News. And thank you for watching.